Welcome everybody.
Hello.
A little bit of actor notes here with two nerds and an actor, sans one nerd.
One nerd.
One
One
nerd.
actor.
One nerd.
One ring to rule them
He's
all.
safe. Promise.
Is he?
Yeah, well, Aisha, we are going to dive into a very popular topic right now. People are still amazed by what they've seen, or not. Mixed reviews somewhat. But on the Joker movie that just came out, directed by Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix, a tremendous
Oscar buzz.
Oscar beehive. Like it's just been crazy with it. And so we're gonna take a look at his performance. You're gonna help us break that down, right?
Sure.
And we're not gonna be like other people. We're not gonna avoid the comparisons. We're gonna break down the differences between the performances of Joaquin Phoenix and Heath Ledger and his Joker. So,
Sure.
Aisha, what would you say is like the main difference from an acting perspective between how you think these two actors approach pretty much the same role?
Yeah. Well, I would say they're pretty much the same role, but I think the stories are fundamentally different. So, for instance, Joaquin got to be Arthur, right?
That's true.
So he was able to put himself into a character who, even though you didn't really get to see so much of a backstory, you don't know where he's from. He didn't even know where he was from. He got to dive into that pool where it's like, okay, this is who I think I am, and he throws everything into this space. But then also the conditions that he has, right? So there's specific conditions in terms of his physicality, in terms of his actual laughing condition that he said.
The little card that he hands out to people.
So those are things that he really got to grasp onto, and it made it so much easy to be insular, right? He could really be insular.
Right.
Whereas I think Heath Ledger, it was more about the grander scheme of things. So imagine it's like, can you be anarchy? And you're like, yeah, sure. Let me just be anarchy, whatever that is. But that takes you into like, and this is something we're talking about a little bit before me and France. It's like you get to be the
Who's
universe.
fine by that?
He's okay. But you get to be the universe. And so it's the idea of like, you don't know where you come from. You don't have this backstory. And for actors, that's like that's not a thing. No.
Oh, it's
that's not a thing.
Oh.
So there's always somewhere where something is rooted in. Right? So you go to that place and you're like, okay, what is my purpose? What is the thing that makes me me? And even if it's not something that's written down.
Like, what's my anchor? What's my...
Exactly. Even if it's not written down, you find it, right?
Okay.
So even if it's not like, for instance, Heath Ledger, he may have found something, but we'll never know what it was.
Unfortunately.
But it was also such a broad, open role that it was like, you can get lost in it, right? So you throw yourself in a universe, you have literally the stars and planets and beyond to work with. Exactly.
Wow.
And then maybe you don't come back.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing is it sounds like Heath was able to like expand on this role infinitely, like the void or the abyss that he was reaching into. We were going with him outwardly into that to see how far he'll take it.
For sure.
But it sounds like Joaquin was able to create kind of a vortex to suck you in.
Yes.
Okay,
sure.
so that does make it sound like very different takes on
they're very...
this, pretty much the same character. Interesting. Now, you mentioned a little bit about Joaquin's physicality, right? I mean, if you've seen the Joker, even the trailers, a lot of movement, right?
Oh, yeah.
These little dances that are being done, people are doing it on the stairs right now, 167. Taking little selfies for it. But let's throw it back a little bit. What about Heath Ledger's physicality? What were some things that he did for the physical presence of the Joker? Because Joker, a lot of people associate him with just being lanky and kind of goofy. But these two characters weren't that so much.
Everything was a choice. Everything was specific.
Right. So tell us a little
and for
about
both
that.
characters, I think. But okay, for instance, for Heath Ledger, you would see something that a lot of actors use, which is very like a sort of like basic thing you would use to get into a character. Is you find a tick.
Okay.
It's like, what is the character's tick? And his was, he would always do the little tongue thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had these little facial ticks that made him who he was, and it was like, you didn't know what it was coming from, and you didn't know what it was for, but you knew it was him.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know what this means, but something bad is gonna happen.
Yeah. Is he flirting with me?
What is
he
this?
About to kill me?
Yeah. He's like flirting with death. That's what his thing was. So his was that. I think for Joaquin, it was about, a lot of it was about your mental state, right? So like, where are you in your head? And this is something that I think France brought up as well. That he moves in and out of different personalities. And that's what his dancing was. He was moving in and out of different personalities. and it was like watching him dance with himself or the many himself.
Like demented Tai Chi.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of finding balance.
He was like,
finding
I'm gonna.
imbalance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
that and just like, I mean, I don't want to go into the sound, but his laugh as well.
No, we'll
so
get there.
much.
We'll get there. All right, cool. I mean, the costumes. I don't know how much choice they have with the aesthetics of the character, but there were some differences there. We're not trying to say which one is better right now, but what were some of the differences? Did that add anything to the characters? You think the aesthetics?
I think so, but I think for Heath Ledger, it was really much about like the world Chris Nolan was making.
Okay.
So he didn't necessarily have that like specific, oh, I'm going to work or I'm doing this or I'm doing that. 'Cause he was just like in this world.
Right,
It was not so much the real world, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, he gets to wear so many other things, right? The nurse's outfit
That's
he got
true.
to wear, or like even the long coat he would wear, which is like an ode to more of like the comics and animated series and stuff.
Darker tone.
Yeah, exactly. And the long coat. So for him, and then like the green hair, I feel like they were very similar in the green hair, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was like
I agree
this
with
sort of green, sort of not kind of thing.
Like it was not done in the salon.
Yeah. yeah. Slick through.
Right.
But yeah, so for him it was very much about
Filling in that Nolan
world
okay.
and what that Joker is.
Okay.
For Heath Ledger, I think it was more
for
like,
Joaquin.
I'm sorry, for Joaquin, it was more like, you know, he had a uniform to put on. Right? So he had this uniform, he had to go to work, he had to do these things, and it was more like, how can I be the dapper me in this uniform that I gotta put on?
How can I make that
I gotta
goofy
put
shit?
on a happy face.
Yeah,
right? He had to
from
put
that very opening scene.
exactly.
Yeah.
He has to put on things. So the outfit was about putting it on. And then, and even when he says some of the lines where it's like, you know, I think you said I had this condition, but it's just who I am.
Right.
So the clothes became, this is what I have to wear because this is who I actually am.
Do you think that's like embracing that other side, like like that uniform they made me wear? Oh, I'm gonna wear the shit out of it.
Yeah, and that's why he does the dance on the stairs. It's like, I've made it. I'm who I am.
This is why we're asking this question, because I did not see that until Aisha's articulating that. Now let's get down to one of the most iconic aspects of Joker, besides the aesthetic, is the laugh.
Yes.
I mean, these two actors, if you close your eyes and you hear Joaquin's laugh, you hear Heath Ledger's laugh, you can tell which one is which.
Yes.
And what do you think they put into that very important aspect of the character? What do you think they brought to that?
Well, I think Heath Ledger, you know, to me, again, I'm not going to speak for all actors out there, but to me, it sounded like he always has a joke going on in his head. So there's always a joke happening in his head, and he's laughing at the joke in his head, and he's like that other side of it, you know, where Joaquin says at the end, like, oh, you wouldn't get it. He's laughing at that all the time in his head. And I think that's what, because it's almost like a giggle, but it's still a hearty laugh. And you're like, what is he laughing at?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Whereas Joaquin, he had two different laughs. Remember that. He had two different laughs.
He did. You had to pay attention, but he definitely did.
He did. And one of the laughs was as for his condition, right? When he couldn't, that was the most...
That was like the painful one? Like the one where he's like actually gripping his neck for?
And it was like, you watched him, he didn't want to do it. It's like, I don't want to laugh, I can't help it, I'm laughing. And it was like that pain and laughter at the same time. It was like ridiculous emotions coming from the screen you couldn't handle. Yeah. And I loved it. The other laugh, I think, is even more complicated. Because he never, I don't think he ever thinks something is actually funny. But he's laughing, right? So it's not a laugh that's like, ha ha ha, it's funny. It's like, I'm gonna laugh at this now. So that was the one that was like, ha 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 ha, right?
Right, the one that was kind of like drawn
out, right?
Yeah.
And so you were never like, does he ever actually think something is funny? What is he laughing at?
I mean, based on, you know, his backstory, not a lot of things
really.
are funny. Yeah.
So it's like, imagine the only thing you can do is laugh. You don't know how to cry.
Right.
You don't know how to do anything else. And I think that's what that laugh really
puts on that happy face.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah. Are there any other aspects that you want to, any differences or maybe similarities, insight that we might not be aware of?
I don't know. I think that you could, in a sense, string them together, right? So you have Joaquin's character going from Arthur to the Joker. He only becomes a Joker when he's like, yeah, introduce me as Joker.
Right.
And
basically towards the end of the film.
Yeah, and that's when like you actually feel more comfortable with him. You're like, okay, now he's the Joker. I can handle him.
Which is scary because you shouldn't feel comfortable at all.
But like him as Arthur was like, I don't know what to do myself.
Right.
But then you can see it swing into Heath Ledger. Like if we kept going, you would make
think
it
you
to
would
Heath
end up
Ledger.
at Heath?
Yeah,
Wow,
because
that's
Heath
pretty
Ledger was
interesting.
comfortable.
Oh, definitely.
He was like, I'm the Joker,
Absolutely.
and it's time to blow up these boats.
That's a very interesting. I mean, obviously the ages are off, but you're just saying the characters themselves, if they were able to link them together, time being relative,
Right.
you see one being able to link into the other.
For sure, yeah.
Wow, and then somewhere in the middle is Jared Leto, right?
Yeah. It's like the phase where you're like, oh
Midlife
man,
crisis.
midlife crisis, I don't know what to do.
I'm gonna change
I'm
my
gonna
bike
go
now.
be a gangster. I own this club.
All right, awesome. Well, I mean, appreciate the insight, the
Yeah.
insight to acting and on a level that we rarely go.
I know. I don't really go that deep myself. This was fun.
We will continue to go deep with other roles in the future, but thank you so much, Aisha.
Yeah.
And tell us what you think about these two performances. Was there something that you noticed maybe that we didn't bring up about
definitely.
these portrayals of the Joker? And how do you feel about the Steps on 167? Just let us know. Comment below, all right? Appreciate you. Check us out later.